Have you ever watched a superhero movie and felt like something was really missing? Maybe the villain just didn't live up to the hype, and you thought that the writers could have done better. We know how frustrating that can be, as we are all left wondering how different things could have been. So let's get straight to it and dive in to find out what the original plans were for the villain in Man of Steel instead of Zod. You probably could have guessed it, since Superman has a bigger enemy than Zod. The original villain was supposed to be no other than Brainiac. He is one of Superman's biggest villains, and many fans think he deserved to be in the movies long before Zod came back in Man of Steel. More than a decade ago, people said Brainiac needed his big screen debut. During Zod's invasion in Man of Steel, there's a scene where the world engine powers up, and you can see 3 glowing circles beneath it. What's cool about this is that it's not just about the machine's lasers. It's a hidden reference to Brainiac's 3-circle symbol. The world engine also has shape-shifting, AI-controlled arms that look a lot like Brainiac's high-tech weapons. This makes you guess that Brainiac could have had a much larger part in the movie rather than Zod, hinting that he could have considerably reduced Krypton's terraforming machines. Despite portraying Superman for a number of years before and after the Man of Steel, Henry Cavill was only afforded one standalone film in the DCEU. In addition, he was mainly seen in team-ups or fighting big baddies like Zod, Lex Luthor, Batman, and Doomsday. Still, it's a little shocking that a character like Brainiac has not been introduced in any of the movies. Brainiac is one of the vital adversaries of Superman in comic strips and cartoons. For some of them, he is almost as dangerous as Darkseid, but despite his strength, Brainiac still hasn't made it into any live-action movies. It has been attempted many times to incorporate him into the scheme of things, but each time the plan shifted or aborted. Thus, even though Brainiac proved to be a formidable foe to Clark in other media, he is again excluded from the films. But that was going to change until what? Until something happened, because we all know the writers love to change it up. There was a planned sequel to Superman Returns called Superman, the Man of Steel, and it should have been much more full-on. So what better way to raise the stakes with the possibility of a final confrontation than by introducing everyone's favorite vengeful ex, who also happens to be a villain? Originally, it was planned that Brainiac would be one villain and Zod the other. This would have been far more formidable for Superman than Lex Luthor was in the first film. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned because of what happened in Superman Returns. Some people were looking forward to Superman Returns because it was a chance to see the superhero on the big screen after years. I assume people were expecting so much from this movie, especially with all the new special effects. However, when the box office sales were not as great as expected, Warner Bros. Became anxious about the continuation of the storyline as well. Unfortunately, Superman Returns was not a successful movie. At best, the movie was just okay, never really standing out. To its credit, it was like a love letter to the old Richard Donner films and Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. But that was also the problem. The movie was so focused on paying tribute to those older films that it felt like people were just watching a copy of something they'd already seen. Don't get me wrong, everyone loved the Reeve-Donner movies. But Superman Returns spent so much time trying to be like them that it made people feel like they should just watch the original movies instead. Plus, no one really wanted a sequel to a franchise that was over 25 years old, with the same villain and even a super baby in the mix. It simply is that there were countless elements that just did not turn out well. Instead of participating in various aspects of the pre-2013 Man of Steel movie, the producers thought it wise to reboot it entirely with the 2013 Man of Steel, and that is how the producers bowed to having Zod back in that film and missing Brainiac completely. Luckily, no one had been offered the role of Brainiac, because if they had, it would have been expensive for the DCEU to recast them. The role of Brainiac was supposedly up for grabs for many big-name actors, but none of them were officially linked to the DCEU, so we've yet to see Brainiac on the big screen. Although a rumor was out that Bradley Cooper was fit for the role. Leading Man of Steel, Zack Snyder, has everything to do. Not only does he need to show that he could deliver more blockbusters, but also that he could redo one of the most recognized superheroes of all time. Nonetheless, Snyder did enough to afford 2 sequels and establish the DCEU. While the movie didn't meet all the humongous expectations, it was successful, but it did not leave everyone stunned or gross a large amount of money as a lot of people expected. The issue with saving Brainiac for a sequel, as they did with Superman Returns and Man of Steel, is that if the first movie does not make a big enough impact or gross well at the box office, they completely eliminate all sequel plans and begin anew. This has occurred so often in the last decade that it is noteworthy, and it is a powerful blow for everyone. Although they hadn't fully figured out how Brainiac would fit into the story before the idea was scrapped, fans can't help but wonder what could have been if Brainiac was in the movie. How amazing would it have been to finally see Brainiac take on Superman on the big screen? If you know Zack Snyder, you know he loves making long, dramatic movies. So, we probably would have gotten an extended origin story for Superman. Since Superman's story is about aliens and first contact with Earth, there's no reason they couldn't have used Brainiac instead of Zod. Zod is a villain who became famous mostly because of the movies, not the original comics. Brainiac's introduction into the DC Extended Universe would have added more depth to Superman's backstory, especially his Kryptonian origins. In the comics, Brainiac is closely tied to Krypton's history before it was destroyed. Man of Steel even hinted at Brainiac's influence on Zod and the other Kryptonians. To introduce Brainiac, they wouldn't even need to change much. It would still be an alien invasion first contact storyline, but this time it wouldn't feel like they were repeating what they did with Superman 2. We could have also seen a fantastic storyline about Brainiac's secret invasion. Brainiac has been shown in different ways, sometimes as an alien and sometimes as an evil supercomputer. While the most famous version of him is the green-skinned alien, the DCEU would have gone with the idea of Brainiac being an evil alien. In Man of Steel, there are hints that Brainiac could already be involved. There's the symbol of Brainiac on the world engines, and the Kryptonian ships use advanced nanotechnology. Plus, all the Kryptonian ships have AI systems so advanced that Superman can talk to a virtual version of his dad, Jor-El, like he's still alive. It wouldn't be hard for the movie to reveal that Brainiac has been hiding on Earth this whole time as a sleeping alien, just waiting for the right time to strike. On another note, imagine if we got to see Superman not just fight General Zod, but also Brainiac in an epic action-packed battle. In the 2013 Man of Steel movie, Zod is the main villain, and the military helps Superman fight him to protect Earth. But if Brainiac had joined Zod as a villain, the final battle would have been even crazier. With his super smart mind and powers, Brainiac could have tricked the military into thinking he was a hero. They might have believed he was there to save humanity instead of destroying it. Brainiac is known for his cold, logical thinking and for collecting planets like trophies. If the military trusted him, they'd end up fighting Superman, who's trying to warn them that Brainiac is the real danger. If Zod and Brainiac teamed up, the fight for Earth would have been more intense. Zod would still try to capture Earth to rebuild Krypton, and Brainiac would still be trying to shrink cities and gather all the universe's data before erasing everything. Superman himself would be between a rock and a hard place, fighting Zod and Brainiac simultaneously and attempting to explain the danger of the latter while trying to persuade the military. I don't know about you, but that would have been a mind-blowing climax. If the military trusted Brainiac, it would lead to even more intense battles. They might follow his orders, thinking they're doing the right thing by going after Superman. This would make things even harder for Superman, who would have to fight not just Zod's strength, but also Brainiac's advanced technology and mind games. This twist would have made the story deeper. Superman wouldn't just be battling physical enemies, but also dealing with confusion and misunderstanding. The fight for Earth would feel more complicated, with Brainiac's cold, calculating nature raising the stakes. As for Superman's canceled sequel to Man of Steel, was going to be a Brainiac-centered film, which was never done. So the villain is waiting for his turn in live action. But what about the future of the Superman and Brainiac? James Gunn intends a massive restructuring of DC movies involving the total overhauling of the franchise from Superman. Sadly, many people cheered when it appeared Henry Cavill would become the hero again, but now it seems the character will be reimagined with a new actor. It might have been nice to get the different but equally efficient version of Lex Luthor again in a new Superman movie, but what we need here is another powerful comic book villain who will make the Man of Steel struggle in all aspects, physically, mentally, and ethically, like the Brainiac. We do not know much about Gunn's new Superman project, but it would not be quite shocking if Brainiac turns out to be the primary antagonist. That would be a whole new level of a Superman movie. The hero Gunn is passionate about comic book stories, and there is no doubt that he has said before that Superman is critical to DC Studios' plans. Brainiac could be the best way to start the new Superman franchise with a big story.